Before we get this video started, I just want to say thank you so much to all my Patreon members. Your support really means the world to me, and I appreciate you all so much.
Okay, hi friends. Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Hannah, and I'm a yoga teacher. I also teach people how to make really yummy vegan food. And today I'm doing a different sort of video. I'm trying something new. This is my friend Michelle.
Hello everyone.
Hey. And we're going to have a little nutrition chat. And we actually did the same nutrition training with Precision Nutrition, if you've ever heard of that company. It certifies you to be a exercise nutrition coach, essentially. So it teaches you a lot about the science of nutrition and how to help other people meet their fitness goals with food. So she's really like the perfect person to be having this talk with.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so even though I got my certification, I haven't used it at all. I mostly just wanted the knowledge for myself, because I like learning, but you actually coach people on a regular basis.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I have been in the spa and wellness industry since 1996.
That's a long time.
Yes.
I didn't realize it was that long.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm old. And but when I started in the spa and wellness industry, I was in my 20s, and I would bring SpaghettiOs to work with me.
Really?
Yes. So I
love spaghetti.
Yeah, I ate tons of processed food, would go to Wendy's, was eating hot dogs, french fries, and was always a healthy weight, but always had issues with my digestive system. So always had digestive upset, and never really made the connection like, oh, maybe what I'm eating is causing problems. Yeah. So it wasn't until I got in my late 30s that I finally started making the connection. Like, I started to gain weight, and over the course of several years,
it always happens in your 30s.
Yeah. I mean, it's true. So it was like between 35 and 40. I'm 48 now.
Yeah.
And I started gaining weight and probably put on close to like 20 pounds, and I'm 5'2". So for me it was significant, and I just didn't feel good.
Yeah, I mean 20 pounds is a lot. Like, if you've ever seen those, sometimes gyms have those things that is like, this is a pound of fat and this is what it looks like, and it looks like a football or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super significant. And I just wasn't feeling good. I was going to doctor's appointments, and all my tests were coming back.
Oh,
like,
so
there was nothing wrong.
You thought you were sick.
Oh yeah, I definitely thought something was definitely wrong with me.
Yeah.
And had all different kinds of tests run, saw all different types of doctors, and they were like, there's nothing wrong with you. So I started then researching on my own, reading a lot about nutrition, and over the course of just reading, started eating more healthy, balanced, whole foods, getting away from highly processed, fast foods, and over the course of 8 weeks, lost all the weight I had gained over the years.
That's fast.
And felt amazing.
8 weeks is really fast.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that eventually then led me to getting certified in nutrition and starting to work one-on-one with people to help them achieve their goals.
Didn't you say that you did another training besides Precision Nutrition?
Yes.
Okay.
So I also trained with Healthy Steps Nutrition.
Okay.
And again, that was founded by a registered dietitian who also owns a CrossFit facility. So a lot of that was really supporting people in sports and fitness, but also just for people who just want to eat healthy, who want to lose weight, or even people that want to gain weight. So yeah, so I have that education in addition to the Precision Nutrition training.
Did you ever think about going to school to become a dietitian?
I did. I did look into it. So the programs that I found, I have my bachelor's degree, so I was going to need to get my master's.
It's a lot more school, isn't it?
It was 2 more years, and the programs on average were around $30,000 or more. And the more that I started looking into it, the difference between being a nutrition coach and being a registered dietitian is, as a registered dietitian, you can actually treat medical conditions.
Right.
Whereas that's outside of the scope of what I can do.
Of course.
However,
we can only kind of give advice.
Yeah. And so when I started thinking about, though, that type of work, this is going to sound terrible, but I really didn't want the responsibility
Yeah.
of I'm treating
Yeah.
this particular disease.
That's a lot of responsibility.
Yes. So I've had clients who have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, type 2 diabetes, but I'm not treating those conditions.
Right.
I'm just helping them establish healthy eating habits
Right.
and creating balance and kind of guiding them along the process. And through that, almost every person I've worked with, you know, in addition to like losing weight, losing body fat percentage, they end up coming off their medications.
Right, yeah. I mean, you don't necessarily have to focus specifically on, you know, your high blood pressure or your diabetes if you just start slowly incorporating better habits. It's kind of just going to happen on its own that things are going to like improve.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, that was a good introduction. Yeah, that was nice. So, I guess what I wanted to talk about a little bit more of today, and we talked about this a bit, we have like so many more plans for other videos that we want to make, but today we want to talk about processed foods and whole foods and the differences between those and the pros and cons, and because I've noticed, and you agreed with me when I told you this, is that it is actually amazing how many people don't know what a whole food is and what makes something a processed food or what makes something an ultra processed food. And that was very surprising to me because for me it was a very easy concept to grasp, but you know, everybody's different. Everybody learns differently. So I thought it would be a good topic to address, and maybe between the two of us we can get more people to understand it. Yeah.
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 So to start off,
I'm sorry, my cat is like being very needy right now.
Bring the cat over.
She has to choose it.
So to start with whole foods.
Yeah.
So, you know, people think of Whole Foods, they probably think of the grocery store Whole Foods.
Of course.
Not everything in Whole Foods is a whole food. I want to put that right out there.
Yeah, Whole Foods actually, it's amazing the junk food that they have in there.
Yes.
Because like, when I remember first going to Whole Foods when I was much younger, my brain, like, I just assumed that everything in there was healthy before I started learning about food.
That's so funny. So I think a lot of people do. I have many clients too who think if they just get their groceries from Whole Foods that it's going to be a whole food and I can eat whatever I want, in whatever quantity. Right. But when we're thinking of whole foods, we're thinking of foods in their natural states that haven't been altered in any way. Nothing's been added to them. So like a great example are like fruits and vegetables, raw nuts, even, you know, for anyone who's non-vegan, so things like meats, eggs, you know, things that haven't been processed, and which segues into process. So processing again can have many different degrees. So you can have something that's minimally processed, highly processed, and ultra processed foods.
Right.
So
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say that I have heard many people, especially on vegan Twitter, if you've ever been on vegan Twitter, there are some vegans who say, oh, avoid all processed foods. It's all bad, it's all unnatural, and they're forgetting that just cooking a vegetable is technically processing it, or turning nuts into nut butter is processing foods. Of course, most people wouldn't say that cooking your broccoli is unhealthy. It actually makes it more digestible, which we'll get into later. But yeah, not all processing is evil, and yeah, sometimes it's actually more beneficial for you.
Yeah, definitely. And so, you know, using kind of the example of an apple. So, you know, you've got a whole apple, and let's say you want to make that into applesauce, which, have you ever made applesauce?
Yes.
See, I've not. So, figured you had.
It's really easy.
So what was the process of making applesauce?
So you peel the apple. You have to get the skin off, and then you usually chop the apples up and you basically just put them in a saucepan and you cook them on low for a very long time, and they just get mushy and delicious.
Right.
You can add sugar and cinnamon.
That would make it a little bit more processed.
Yes, that would make it a little bit more processed, but essentially you just have to cook apples until they're mushy on a very low heat for a long period of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then let's say you take those apples and you turn it into a McDonald's apple pie. So there's
which are vegan.
There's chemicals though, there's preservatives, there's
Sure.
a lot more processing that goes into that. So there's nutrients being lost in that process.
Yes.
And some bad preservatives, chemicals and things being added into that. So now
Sure.
it's making it more processed.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I do also want to add though that not all chemicals are bad either. I mean, everything is a chemical. But when we're talking about like a McDonald's apple pie, then yes, there are some pretty nasty things added to them. I don't know if you ever saw, like, was it on Super Size Me or something where they took a McDonald's meal and then they just left it out for months and it didn't get moldy or rot or like change at all?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's weird. Like, food should rot, food should age. So something's going into that McDonald's that is like not okay.
And that's a really good example of also between whole foods and highly processed foods. As
Yes.
I said, the minute you cut into an apple, within a few minutes it starts oxidizing.
Right, and it starts changing color.
Right,
Yes.
I mean within minutes. And
Yeah.
like you said, that apple pie, that thing's gonna sit there forever.
For years. Yeah.
So that's a good sign. If something, goes bad quickly, more than likely, it's probably more whole than processed.
I bet you it would still taste the same too.
Probably.
It might get hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe dry. but
Yeah. So with that being said, there are also, like we were saying, ultra processed foods, which is when you take a food and you're changing it so much from its natural state that, I mean, most of the time it's unrecognizable from what it started out as. Like, do you want to give an example, or should I?
Go right ahead.
Okay, yeah. So let's take soy, for example, because a lot of people hate soy. There's a lot of debate about whether soy is healthy or unhealthy. And and I will say that unless you're actually allergic or sensitive to soy, soy is actually really good for you. It can be good for protein source. It has anti-cancer properties. It can help with menopause. It can help with a lot of things. But anyway, so there's a soybean, grows as a little bean, and that is soy in its whole form. Now, when you're making soy milk or tofu, you're soaking the bean and you're grinding it down. So that's minimally processed soy to turn it into tofu or soy milk. And then you have a product like textured vegetable protein, which if you've ever seen it, it looks and it feels a lot like meat. I don't know how they make it that texture. I don't know the process to get textured vegetable protein, but that comes from a soybean. I've never seen anybody make it. I would love to actually learn how they make it, but it looks nothing like a soybean anymore. It doesn't taste like a soybean. It is very far removed from a soybean, and when you start moving into those highly processed forms of fruits and vegetables, they're losing, I mean, it does still have protein, but you're losing a lot of the other added benefits of the soybean, basically, or whatever fruit and vegetable we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think that, whole foods and processed foods have their place in our diet.
Sure.
Whereas obviously I would coach my clients and advise people to eat mostly whole foods.
Mm-hmm.
For some people, eating an 100% whole food diet is possible and enjoyable for them and sustainable. But for other people, it's not going to be enjoyable for them. It's not going to be something that they can sustain.
And it's not realistic for everybody. Obviously in a perfect world, we would all be eating whole foods all the time, but like, this is 2021. It's about to be 2022, and like, we have shit to do, and sometimes we can't spend hours in the kitchen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know myself, I'm not a cook.
Right.
All my meals are like 10 minutes or less. If it's anything that has an ingredient list, honestly, beyond probably like 5 or 6 ingredients, I'm not going to do it. And I know that you are so much better at this, like the meals that you put together and the time that you invest and just like your knowledge level, and just you probably enjoy doing
like
it
cooking
as well.
a lot,
I'm like, get me out of the kitchen.
It's not like my mom.
Yeah. But you know, everything that I eat, I love the taste of. So for me, it works. Not having tons of ingredients, like I don't need all these different spices and flavors for it to be enjoyable for me. But I know for some people, you know, they need more complex recipes for it to be enjoyable for them to consume.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess we can talk a little bit about
the place that whole foods and processed foods have in your diet. So, you know, why would you want to eat whole foods? Well, whole foods, for one, are much more nutrient dense. So when it comes to things like vitamins and minerals that your body needs to function at an optimal level, you're going to get those in whole foods.
For sure.
Whereas, as we've said, as you move over to processed foods, through the processing process, they lose their nutrients, and some of them end up devoid of all nutrients.
Sure.
So you're just literally getting calories that have no nutrients in them.
And then on the other hand, like I was kind of mentioning before, sometimes minimally processing foods actually makes nutrients in them more bioavailable. Like a lot of vegetables, for example, once you cook them, they become easier to digest and then absorb the vitamins and minerals that are in them. Beans, for example, like you can't eat raw beans. Raw beans will make you very sick. However, once you soak the hell out of them and cook them really, really well, they become a really good source of protein.
Absolutely. And so I know that we've talked about kind of how processed foods can be incorporated in your diet and how it can maybe even be helpful for you. So I know we just mentioned, for the sake of quickly preparing something. So something that you can, you know, grab and go, or maybe quickly just throw in the microwave. So I know for me, processed foods at time, I have these like little baby food packet things that are not, you know, they're not
the
highly processed.
Ones.
These little Noka packets. And you know, it's mostly fruits and vegetables. There are some like concentrates in there. There's probably a preservative in there too. But it's all like, I can read the ingredients and I can identify what everything is. It's not like I have to Google anything. So it's not highly processed, but for me, that's something that's really quick. It has a little bit of plant protein in it.
Sure.
It's got fruits and vegetables in it, so I can just grab and go. Would it be healthier if I actually like maybe grab some whole fruit?
Sure.
Yes. But, you know, let's say I'm going on a hike and I'm going to be gone for 4 hours and I don't want to carry, you know, an ice pack with me. Having something that doesn't need to be refrigerated still gets me some nutrients into my body.
It's better than eating a candy bar.
Exactly.
Yeah, so sometimes you have to weigh your options. Like, yes, we want to be perfect and we want to eat healthy, but like, you can't try to be a perfectionist all the time about this. You have to think to yourself, like, you know, what is going to, how do I put this, help support your goals and be realistic with yourself, because a lot of times, I mean, and I struggle with this problem all the time, I'm working on it, is that sometimes if I can't do something all the way like how I would ideally like to, I end up not doing it at all. And it's always better to at least try to some extent, and it's usually going to be better than being a lazy piece of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I always say aim for progress, not perfection.
Yes.
Because a lot of people do have this all or nothing mentality where if they can't do their quote unquote diet 100% on plan, then they just go completely off plan. And it's better to just incorporate some healthier habits. You don't have to like change everything overnight. It doesn't have to be drastic, but just adding in a little extra vegetables. Adding in a little extra fruit. Even before you start taking things out of your diet, just starting to incorporate and add some things in can kind of help that process.
One example of that I actually just gave, I think on Twitter, I don't know, maybe I posted on Instagram too, is that like I have been always stocking bags of mixed frozen vegetables in my freezer lately, because for whatever reason, for the longest time, I felt like it wasn't acceptable to use them because they were like not as good for whatever reason, and it was like I was cheating and not really cooking if I use these frozen vegetables. But like having those vegetables in my freezer to just literally throw into whatever I'm making, I'm eating way more vegetables than I ever did. And yeah, I would love to eat fresh vegetables all the time, but sometimes I don't have any in the fridge. But I do have, you know, a bag of mixed veggies in the freezer that I can throw into rice or whatever I'm making. So it can also, frozen vegetables are picked at like the peak of their ripeness. So a lot of times they actually wind up having more vitamins and minerals than the fresh version. So
yeah. No, definitely frozen fruits and vegetables are great, especially, you know, if you're like a single person and you're at home alone. You know, you buy all this fresh produce, you don't want to have, you know, you're spending good money, especially if you're buying organic. You don't want to have to throw anything. I get so mad when I buy like a container of spinach and I have to when I have to throw out like half of it. So anytime, I always, I mean, I would say majority of the vegetables of mine are probably frozen.
And you know what I've been doing lately is if I have vegetables in the fridge that I notice are about to go bad, and I have to be realistic with myself and be like, you know what, you're not going to eat this before it goes bad. And then I just chop it up and throw it in the freezer.
I always forget to do that, but that's great. Great advice.
I've been getting better at it lately because I see the stuff in the fridge and I'm like, no, you'll use it, Hannah, you'll use it. But then it's like, no, I have shit to do. I'm too busy. I'm not going to use it. And so just freeze it.
So yeah, I think that kind of covers, you know, the benefits and, you know, the pros and cons of, you know, when whole foods, you know, can be a con if it's a little bit too much work for you, but obviously the more that you can incorporate that into your diet, the better. But also kind of how to incorporate processed foods to help support your goals and make it easier for yourself to eat healthy.
Another good one is protein powder, for example. I mean, most protein powders, I mean, they're all processed to an extent, some more than others. And protein powders are great if you are, you know, whether you're vegan or not, sometimes you don't always have time to like weigh out your food or make sure you're eating enough protein that day. So it's nice to just throw that shake in there and just make sure you're getting, you know, enough of, sometimes it's vitamins that they add in there too. Like the one that I have, it has, I think, like almost all your daily vitamins and a bunch of other crap in it. So it's nice to just have those like quick, easy options sometimes.
And yeah, I think protein powders is another good example too of kind of that minimally processed to ultra processed. So I always tell like my clients, look at that ingredient list. 9 times out of 10, not always, but if the list is like this long, unless it's all vegetables and things you can identify, which sometimes it is.
Yeah, sometimes.
9 times out of 10 you're reading it and it's like
chemicals that you can't pronounce.
You do not even know what these things are. Put that back on the shelf. If you see things like sucralose, any of these synthetic fake sugars, put it back on the shelf. There are other options for protein powders that, you know, still blend well, taste good, that are going to give you much more nutrients. So even when you're picking a processed food, there is, of course, levels to that as well that you can pick from.
There's a spectrum.
Yes.
I like that word.
Yes.
And that, maybe we should talk a little bit about the artificial sweeteners a little bit, since we're talking about processed foods and you just brought that up. I know you try to stay away from all the artificial sweeteners, and I do as well. I didn't used to as much, but if you were watching some of my past videos, the vlogs where I was doing my AIP diet and clearing up my psoriasis, one of the things when you're doing that elimination diet is really to not have any type of artificial sweeteners. And I do believe that like that very much is a trigger, at least for my psoriasis, and it seems to be a trigger for a lot of people's autoimmune conditions. And what do you find is the benefit for you of not eating those things?
So for me, I'm like a self-confessed sugar addict.
Yeah.
I love everything sweet.
Right.
So like cakes, cookies, pies. I mean, I just grew, like in high school, I was the girl who always had candy. So
Yeah.
I mean, literally everyone would come to me for Jolly Ranchers and chocolate and like that, and that probably went into college too.
Yeah.
Where I just have always craved sugar, and definitely found, again, as I got older, my digestive system was not having it. I also had cystic acne from the time I was very young. And so over the course of going through my nutrition journey, and one of the things that I cut out was these highly processed and chemicals, fake sugars. So things like sucralose definitely is a huge no-no. Even for me, even though stevia is a plant, I also seem to have some issues with that from a digestive standpoint. So for me, when I'm sweetening things, I personally, my go-to sweetener is maple syrup, which I still use in moderation.
Sure, yeah,
So-
because it's still sugar.
It's still added sugar.
Yeah. And I know there is some like mixed data on it, but there is some evidence to show that these artificial sweeteners can be damaging to your gut health, and as well as all the ultra processed foods, is that they upset your gut microbiome, which contributes to every
disease.
disease and every process in your body. It relates back to your gut health, and they're finding that out more and more, is that a lot of diseases stem from gut, is the word dysbiosis?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's the right word. Maybe it's not. I'm sorry if I sounded like an idiot.
But just like bloating,
Yeah.
indigestion,
Yeah.
stomach upset, your mood, your energy levels, so many of these things. I have clients who are putting in like 6 tablespoons of, table sugar into their coffee each day. And that's not to account for the sugars that are maybe
That's a lot
in
of
their
sugar.
breads, in their sauces,
Yes.
in their Chick-fil-A sandwich. I mean,
Yeah.
things you don't think that sugar is in salad dressings.
That's another downside to buying a lot of ultra processed foods, is that they often just hide a lot of sugar in there, like a lot of sugar.
Yeah, and the thing is, when you look at it, you're not necessarily going to identify it as sugar. So
No,
if
because it's usually called something
if it
else.
has like a toast at the end, so
Yeah.
like maltose, dextrose,
or syrup, like
syrup,
a rice
concentrates,
syrup. Yes.
different things. So they hide them in there, so it's not obvious, oh, this is sugar. And there are certain things that don't even then, they'll say, oh, it's sugar-free, but it has fake sugars in it.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, yes, it doesn't have actual sugar, but it's got a fake sugar in it.
Yes, absolutely.
So you have to be really careful with food labels when it comes to that as well.
Definitely. So one of the things I definitely would like to touch on as well, and we kind of did mention it earlier, is some of the issues that you can run into when you are not eating enough whole foods, eating too many highly processed foods, what that can kind of do to your body, your mood, everything like that.
Yeah, so when you're eating a diet that is high in highly processed foods, it's very easy to end up in a situation where you are potentially overweight because they're so calorically dense, but not nutrient dense. So then you're eating all these calories. Also, these foods have been made in a way to make you want to eat more of them.
Yes.
So you crave them,
Yeah.
you eat them in larger quantities, and they're nutrient deficient. So it's very
Yeah.
highly possible that you can be overweight and have, nutritional deficiencies. So you're
Yeah.
lacking certain vitamins and minerals that then manifest in different diseases, essentially.
I think that, although a lot of people do have knowledge of vitamins, I think a lot of people lack knowledge on all of the minerals that we also require. Like, our body is made up of, 100 and something minerals. I can't remember how many exactly, but there's a lot that we get from our foods, and those super highly processed foods have usually had all of those beneficial minerals removed from them.
Also notice with highly processed foods, they will strip them out and then they'll add things back in.
Oh, they'll fortify
so they do that,
them.
Yeah, they'll fortify them when it's like if you were just eating whole foods,
you wouldn't need
to fortify them back in.
Yeah.
You could just have it in the original food. So it's a little ironic that you see this a lot in like milks, breads, where they cereals, and I'm like, well, if you're eating whole foods, you don't have to have these fortified processed foods.
And mineral deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies, it can cause so many different issues in your body. Like you'll see people like with thinning hair or skin problems, or I know there's like a lot of people don't like to hear this, but depression and anxiety, I mean, I'm not saying that perfect or good nutrition is the cure to anxiety and depression, but it makes a huge difference because a lot of it does stem from poor nutrition.
Yeah, so I mean your gut health plays a huge role in every disorder. So you know, there are even, you know, links with things like Alzheimer's, dementia, you know, all of these things are getting linked back to what's happening in your gut.
Yes.
And so what affects your gut? The foods that you're eating, the medications that you're taking. So even, you know, taking certain medications affects your body's vitamins and minerals, and like strips your bodies of those. So it's like, you know, you're taking a medication for something, but then you're getting a negative side effect from it as well. So nutrition is super important.
I have to look into this further, but I was reading a little bit about how hormonal birth control can cause improper absorption of certain like vitamins and minerals. So I had no idea. I mean, yeah, if you don't want to get pregnant, sure, take birth control. But like for me, birth control was a nightmare. I had so many issues with it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think also people don't realize like vitamin D is actually a hormone. So even like hormonal disruptions, you know, different things, a lot of people are not out getting enough sunshine to be able to get vitamin D, and if they're not supplementing with it, they're very much not likely getting it in their diet. So,
and even if you are supplementing with it, like I recently learned that if you're taking vitamin D, you should also be taking it with K2. That helps the absorption. It helps with a lot of things. K2 is great. You should probably take it.
Yeah. And I think this is just kind of illustrates the fact that when you're eating whole foods, you're eating things that are complementary as well. So, you know, for example, people that when they eat like beans and rice, they get like a complete amino acid profile.
Yeah.
So like having variety in your diet.
Yes.
Having, you know, eating, and people say eat the rainbow, but there's reasons behind that, because these different foods that are in different colors, whether it's red or purple or yellow or orange, have all different nutrients in them. So enable to, you know, to enable your body to be functioning at an optimal level and getting all the vitamins, minerals you need, getting as much of that from whole foods and not having to supplement is the ideal. But again, if you do need to supplement, you have that option still.
Sure, yeah. And also not just supplement with actual supplements, but sometimes, like I said, or like you said as well, sometimes it's helpful to supplement with certain processed convenience meals, depending on like what they are, what they're made of, and all that. Yeah. Now that we have, I feel like we've pretty much covered what whole foods are, what processed foods are, what ultra processed foods are, what are the pros, the cons. We are going to move it on over to my Patreon page and get more into ways that you can incorporate this knowledge and really use it and help build some healthier habits in your day-to-day life. So we're going to end this YouTube video here, but my Patreon page is only $1 to subscribe, so I highly recommend you come join my little community. There's also yoga classes on there. There's recipe videos, guided meditations, sleep stories, all kinds of other things. So thanks for checking out this video. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. And if you aren't already, please subscribe to my channel. Please like and comment on this video. It really helps the algorithm. And I will also leave Michelle's information down below if you're interested in nutrition coaching. And is there anything else that you want to add?
Just that you can follow me on Instagram at
Yeah.
Infinite Wellness Consulting. I try to post some advice on,
You post good advice.
Thank you.
I think I repost some of your advice.
Yeah, and some really like simple, easy,
Yes.
5 to 2 ingredient meals.
Listen, we love easy. The world is ending. We love easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right. Thanks, guys.